Hi everyone, happy Women's Day. Thank you all for tuning in, if you are. Today we have Dalit Lymor with us. She's a feminist illustrator based here in Rotterdam. Hi Dalit.
Hello.
Thanks for being here. How
Thanks
are
for
you?
having me. I'm really good. Also a little bit nervous because I never do live interviews. So this is also a first thing for me. So yeah, let's pop this cherry, I guess.
Of course. Thanks so much for being here today. And could you just introduce yourself a little bit so everyone gets to know you a bit better?
Yeah, of course. Well, like you said, I'm Dalit Lymor. I'm a Jewish feminist illustrator and I graduated from the Willem de Koning in 2019, and then I did my project about reclaiming Lilith and female sexuality in the digital world. And basically, I was studying the phenomenon slut-shaming, and as with lots of things that I'm curious about, I'm always curious, like, why do we do the things that we do? And I wanted to research where does this thing, slut-shaming, where does it all come from? And with my illustrations, I just want to shine a positive light on female sexuality. Also on the Jewish community, I think that's just the thing that I want to do is highlight every aspect of my identity, which is Dutch, Argentinian, Jewish, being a woman, and celebrate that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And how did you come across with this character? Like, what inspired you to create Dalit?
Well, with the thing, or with that character Lilith, it came basically just from the old stories. Like I said about like slut shaming, when you go back into time, you can link it to religion. And then I stumbled upon the story of Adam and Eve, and basically there was another woman before Eve, and that was Lilith. And I was like baffled and mind blown. I was like, oh my God, who is this persona? And then I researched it more, and basically I tried to summarize it in a nutshell. But she was this beautiful woman with red hair, not talking about myself right now, but she was like really sexual and dominant, and Adam took like a submissive role in their relationship. And he wanted to change all that, and by changing that, he was like, oh, I want to, when we have intercourse, I want to be on top of you. And Lilith was like, okay, but wait a minute, I can do that too, and I want to do that as well. Mm-hmm. And then eventually they had like a huge argument, and she flew off into the air, and she sat down near the Red Sea, and God came down to talk with her and was like, hey, Lilith, you need to change your ways or there will be consequence. So you will be either or banished from the Garden of Eden, or you will actually change your relationship with Adam. But if you're going to be banished, and you're going to be crowned as the queen of the underworld. And she chose the last one. So there's like lots of these myths about her that she tries to seduce men and bite off their heads and stuff like that. And I was like, oh my God, that is amazing. And I think she was just a misunderstood woman. And she was just an every woman who was just embodying her sexuality, and the world at the time was just too narrow-minded for that worldview. And that's her story, and that's how I came up with her. Yeah,
that's beautiful. I actually remember when I first moved to Rotterdam that I discovered your illustrations, and I found them very catchy. Very obviously, I resonated with them a lot. And I guess many women and many people do as well. But I'm curious of how you kind of managed to adapt this story you just told me through your work. Like, what do you look at and how do you represent this in your work?
Well, the thing is that because I want everyone to relate with her, I want every woman to relate with her. So I think as I want her to be put in, get her away a little bit from the biblical aspect, because obviously that's not where we live in anymore. But I want to then use that narrative in order so that we can understand the situation that we're currently living in today, and understand society through that lens. So I think it was a really kind of like experimental kind of thing. Like, okay, how can I use this old narrative and put it into like a new code in a way? And that was also really fun to do. But then you can have more sense of the world and understand it better. And I think that's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. And kind of related to my previous question, but how have you found your artistic style through the years? Like, how have you developed as an individual and also as an artist, would you say?
Oh, like my style has been changed over the years so much. Like, because when I started art school, like the things that I made then and compared with now, it's not the same, like at all. And in the beginning, also when I started art school, it wasn't. I haven't decided yet at that time. Oh, I'm gonna be a feminist illustrator or anything like that. Like, I've been always a very political, outspoken person, and I was also really creative. And then I was always thinking like, I just want to make nice works. And then later on, as I grew older, became more mature, I was like, okay, I have these frustrations. How am I gonna put that into artwork? And what will be my tool to actually change the world? Like, I don't think I'm gonna create world peace with it, obviously, but I think as an artist myself, I think we have a duty to kind of sometimes reflect upon what's happening in society, and that's what I try to do. Yeah,
so it's a personal as well as an artistic development.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Because I think if you look in every woman's story and also my story, then there has been occasions where I have been let down because I'm a woman or not taken seriously, and obviously you get fed up with that, and then you get angry, and then you're like, okay, but how am I gonna attack this thing or make the situation better for me? And you can have conversations, which I think is also really, really necessary. But also when you send out an image, it can create some kind of comfort with people, and I find comfort in that. So I would love to share that comfort with other people.
Yeah, and this is actually also quite interesting because obviously when you express something verbally, I guess you don't have the same impact as a piece of art has. So what do you think you portray through your images as well? What are like the staple things you try to show and to spread a message with?
As like a summarization of what what I try to highlight in my work, you mean? Or
yes.
Yeah. Just also fun things. I think, especially when I think of womanhood, I want to celebrate womanhood. And I think we do that, right now in the past few years, especially with all the amazing platforms that have been coming, we are embracing our womanhood more, and it's like a celebration. And I felt like, we need to do that. And I want to be part of it. Like, sexuality, women's sexuality is not something that needs to be shamed. If anything, it needs to be celebrated. And it's often so misrepresented or misunderstood. And I think if we can highlight all aspects of sexuality and also women's sexuality, then we can understand ourselves better, and then there is no stigma about it. So I think to also tackle certain things with like lots of humor, then people can laugh about it, but also like, oh yeah, I can relate into that. And that I think it's such an easy and small thing, but it can.
It's still powerful.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
humor
exactly.
is powerful.
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
And also I'm curious about some of the challenges you've had to face until now. What would you say they are, in terms of like inspiration or controversies?
A
tricky one.
What would be my obstacles? Well, I think also what women artists also face is that even in the artistic world, where we think we are so progressive. There are still a lots of things that need to be tackled and need to be addressed. There are still also in that field lots of toxic masculinity, and women are not really always invited at the table and are being invited in these circles. And then there's this place where you can see that that there's male egos clashing, and then I think it's sad that it's happening, because I always want to come from a place where there's no ego, and I think it should never be in the way of why somebody needs to be into a conversation or not. And and also that basically
No, and despite the ego clashes you feel and you see, do you think there's still a community behind the work you do? Do you feel there's support?
Definitely. I've met amazing feminist organizations, also Jewish organizations, Jewish feminist organizations, and because for example, me as a Jewish woman, the thing that I always struggle with is that if I'm in a space, I'm always the only Jewish person, but only when I go to the synagogue, for example. Not that I'm religious or in any sort of sense, but that's where I meet Jewish people. But then it's also, I don't find other like-minded Jewish people. So then I'm like a minority within a minority. So that's always a bit of thing that I felt really alone with, and that was sometimes really, really hard. But since I think a year or something, I've met this really great organization as well. They are called OIV, and they're really inclusive and really loud and proud feminist, and that gave me a sense of like, that's so amazing. I'm not the only one anymore, and now I can have this conversation with other people and talk about those issues as well. So, because I think sometimes we are excluded as well from that conversation, and I think we do need to understand that as well a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely, yes. And could you tell us a bit more about your latest projects, for example? What have you been up to last couple of months?
Oh, well, lots of interviews, lots of protests. Also, I'm just trying to constantly reflect upon things that are currently happening in society. So if I see something that I'm angry about, then I will like, okay, you know what? I'm angry, but I will make an illustration, something like that. And I'm still experimenting with style a little bit. And right now I've been working, or I'm trying to also get subsidies and stuff like that. So right now my main focus is to apply for those kind of things. I don't want to give away too much.
Yeah, of course.
Like the one thing that I really want to continue with is to make a graphic novel out of Lilith, and that it will be like Lilith feminist superhero, and have a really cool, amazing book about her. And also to also lots of people don't know Lilith's also actually a Jewish story. And I think, Lilith is just the way as well as like where my feminism, where my Judaism, that all of it kind of comes together. And
it's a combination of personas.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, I really want to share that with everyone. So yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. I really love this character. So
Thanks.
I recommend everyone to check her out. And if a book is coming, then...
Oh, I would be so thrilled.
I think this character needs to get out there into the world for sure. A bit more.
We'll see how the subsidies go.
Regarding your inspiration, what inspires you, both artistically and also in your everyday routine? What do you look at? What do you observe?
I read lots of articles. The funny thing is, I'm such a chaotic mess of a person that when it comes to reading, I'm really bad at it because my concentration goes all the way with. But when articles, I consume them. I'm like, it sounds so stupid, but the Cookie Monster of articles, I guess. So when I research into things, or I can be really like obsessed about like a thing, like I had with Lilith, and then I delve into it, and then I go into the depths of internet, and then try to find everything that I can. About this thing, and I think that is still my fascination, and I'm still trying to find a way how I can talk more about her. But it hasn't always been. Sometimes I have hard days as well, and sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't know what to do, or sometimes I'm like, is the thing that I'm doing now, is that, am I not maybe a little bit bored with it, or what will be there other ways to get my message across? So I try to experiment with animation, and then the thing is, because I am so chaotic, and sometimes I set my goals a little bit too high, and then I have literally no experience in animation whatsoever, and then I'm like, you know what, I'm going to make an animation movie of 2 minutes, and I'm going to do it frame by frame. And that obviously I managed to get 10 seconds, so the 2-minute thing did not work yet. So I think there was also a learning. Yeah, definitely. That sometimes in order from getting to A to Z, I need to do also B, C, D, etc. And I sometimes need to remind myself,
of course,
as well of that. So
And I'm quite curious because, you know, when you look at something for very long, or you have something in your head for very long, that it ends up being kind of monotonous, and like the spark is gone. Do you have this with Lilith, the character, as well? Like, how do you keep on the kind of like the magic? Like, is the character constantly changing, or I don't know, do you have breaks as well of like not working with the character and then come back to it?
Well, it's also because I am an illustrator, but I'm not. It's also not my main income, so sometimes I can, because I also have a side job. I can sometimes step away from it in a way, because I need to. Because I need to get more money somewhere else. So I think it's also sometimes a blessing in a way, because then I can step away from it and not feel constantly stressed about it. But sometimes I'm like, then I'm making an art thing, and then still making pictures of it and maybe putting it in my Instagram story, and then later I'm like thinking of it and like, I'm actually not really happy with it, or it feels too easy, or too, and like, how can I really get my message across? And I think there's literally no good answer for that in any sort of way, because I will literally then show my artwork to, for example, my studio mates, and be like, what do you think of this? Or what do you think of this? Or I go to my boyfriend, like, oh, does my message come across good or not? And then I'm constantly like, oh, I really hope it makes an impact. And I think, you can have these conversations, which I highly encourage everyone to do. But sometimes the only way you will actually find it out is just to put it up online and see what happens. And also, because that's also the thing which I'm also afraid of, maybe you say something bad, or it's not being taken well by people. That's sometimes also a concern of mine.
Of course.
But then just let that happen. Allow yourself to make mistakes. For sure. I mean, the online world, I think it's so scary sometimes, especially to show your creations. But we're so harsh to each other. We are in a century, in a time where everyone is just overly critical. Everyone has an opinion, and it's all found by Facebook.
But at the same time, it provides us with the spread of our work and ideas. So
it's a hate-love relationship.
Exactly, for sure. And regarding your future projects, should we be in the look for, like, are there any future projects that you have in mind that we should know of?
Well, not at the moment. Like I said, I'm just having my own projects that I'm currently working on. And like I said, I'm really busy with applying for lots of things and get that sorted. And right now it's more individual work where I'm just responding to articles or things that are frustrating me, and I will be definitely speaking more and creating more, and will always be busy with it. So I think, and also I'm always open to collaboration. So if anyone ever wants to, hit me up, slide in my DM, or go to my website. So that's also I'm always open to. So
yes. Of course. And if you had to give advice to new creators that are just starting, or that also have in mind getting into illustration, what would you tell them?
Just do it. don't be afraid. Don't be scared to make ugly work.
Define ugly work.
Things that I've created like maybe like 4 years ago or something, and that's also like a funny thing, and also a funny thing of development. Then sometimes in the beginning you're like, or 4 years ago, I'm like, oh yeah, that was so great, oh it looks amazing, and then like maybe even 2 weeks later, or now maybe 4 years later, I'm like, that is absolute shit.
How were your creations at the very beginning, would you say?
Way more, because I did Graafs Lyceum in Utrecht.
Mm-hmm.
It was way more commercial, very practical, because that was the thing. Like, I went to Graafs Lyceum not because I saw myself as becoming an artist. Like, that was never really something that I ever really thought of happening for me. I also come like from a family where it's like you need to have a really set career for yourself and make money so that you can have a real future. And I was always busy with drawing because I really love to draw. And then I did VMBO, and from VMBO it seemed like, oh, there isn't really like nice educations to follow up through. And then with an open night, the Graafs Lyceum came to my school, and I was like, oh my God, I really like this. Then I don't have to do math. So yes. And then I talked with my dad about it, and he said, yeah, I can definitely see you doing like making posters and making logos. I think that's something you should do. Mm-hmm. And then when being at Graafs Lyceum, it became clear like, oh, if I'm done with doing this, and I have my degree, then I can actually go to art school. And that's basically how it kind of like all went for me. And and it was because you're in Graafs Lyceum, it's like you need to make way more digital work because it's going to be for commercial ends using. And and eventually I was like, I just want to draw again. So it was just like this path of like first really aiming to the computer always, and now I'm setting myself kind of like free from that. And so I'm still using the computer to like edit it, but I'm now way more like making sketches in my sketchbook, or and maybe if like there's a spot or something, then maybe I will delete that in Photoshop. But it's funny that in nowadays you start out digitally and then you go analog.
It actually a lot of that's coming back a lot as well.
Oh yeah,
going back to the roots of things.
Yeah, definitely.
Photography as well. And actually I think the previous question, which was, which advice would you give to someone who's I kind of lost track over the question a little bit.
Just do it. Just if you feel like you have an output, just make your work. Don't be afraid to make ugly work, and just put it out there. And because I think putting it out there is such a huge key. Because if I would be constantly afraid of what other people would think, and I am. It's not that I'm not, because I still am. Then if I would never put it out online, then I would not have been sitting here at this table. And I think, I want to encourage everyone, to do so, because it can be you're depriving yourself from great things, and I think you should never do that.
Yeah, exactly. I guess also I really want to know how, of course you've kind of mentioned it throughout the questions, but how have you found your voice especially as a woman, as an artist, in today's society, would you say?
I think it has to do with my mom. Maybe that sounds so cliche, but
Mom, if you're watching,
that shout out to my mom. I got it from my mama. No, but she is also a very outspoken Argentinian Jewish woman, and and that's what I love about her. And we have a very fiery relationship. But I think everything that she did, and she really fought for her position as a woman, and also as an immigrant, because we tend to believe in the Netherlands that we are so tolerant. And my mom always say that she has a problem with that word, because it means that you accept something that you don't really like. Yeah. And that should not be the case. I should not be a thing that you don't like and you just let it be in the room. And I think that's I always looked up to her in a way, because she's a very career-driven woman, and she has been going through lots of obstacles, and also going from Argentina to live here in the Netherlands with my dad. That was also like a sacrifice for her, and I always admired that she did what she did, and I think that's a thing that I try to remember myself of, and find her voice is also my voice.
Yeah,
so
that's very beautiful to put it that way.
Thank you.
And do these stories come out in your illustrations as well? Like the fact that, for instance, Lilith, is Lilith also an immigrant, for instance? Does she have to fight as well?
Well, I think Lilith could be seen, like I said, she's an every woman. So women from all over the world should be could see their story in Lilith, and she was definitely fighting her demons, and she was also the first woman mentioned in scripture that was going against all these male entities in her life. That and it was also when people talk about her, it was like highly discouraged by every woman. Like it was also a story used for Jewish girls, for example. Like, oh, be careful, don't act like a Lilith, because if you act like a Lilith, then there are consequences. And actually, it should be the other way around. It should be celebrated. So, and actually, in really religious circles, and not talking only about the Jewish ones, but also in Christianity or in Islam, there is this thing about that we need to be careful with how we use or show our womanhood, and especially in the Netherlands, where obviously we're an atheist society, but our norms and values are still shaped and formed from the church, and that's how our society actually grown and shaped that way. And I think it's sometimes good to stand still with that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And when you speak about womanhood, what exactly do you associate womanhood? What does it mean to you, and through your work as well?
Oh, that's such a difficult question, because I don't think there's like a definition. And
what are the key aspects that you integrate in your work through womanhood?
The color pink, because I always think like pink is also always associated with like femininity, softness, not tough or something. And I think it's completely the opposite. I think pink is such a bold color. It's such a fun color as well, and it always it gives me it gives me life. It makes me happy, and I think that's especially when I think of my work, then that's just the thing how to describe it, pink. And and I think it's a great symbol as well for womanhood. I don't really have like a definition for it or in any.
It also changes through the years, through the decades. The associations and the connotations of words are in a constant in constant change. So. Yeah, but I was just curious to see how you represent this through. Yeah,
because also
Lilith's eyes.
The fun thing as well, because what I read about was that like 50 years, or maybe now even 60 years back, that light blue was first seen as a
female.
So it's weird how that changes. Yeah, and I think that's also fascinating. But I want to reclaim that, and also. Yeah, womanhood could be anything, like, because people always tend to think like womanhood is soft or gentle, and which could also be womanhood, you know, because it really depends on the person. But for me, for example, I'm very outspoken, emotional, loud. I mean, the joke that I constantly make is that you can hear me on the Himalaya mountains still, and that's sometimes being perceived as male qualities, for example. And I'm like, nah, that's also womanhood, and we could be all things. Yeah, it's not just one thing. It's a spectrum. Yeah,
it's a combination. Of different things. Yeah, for sure. Dalit, these were my questions for you today. I kind of want to thank you again for being here with us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was really fun.
A pleasure to have you. I hope you enjoyed. And is there anything you want to say to summarize, to say goodbye to?
Well, thank you so much for having me. It was really, really fun. If people ever want to reach out or even thinking about making illustrations themselves, you can always contact me, or even want to maybe have a dialogue or something, a conversation, then feel free to always reach out. Yeah.
Thank you so much again, and till next time.
Yeah.
Happy Women's Day to you and to everyone listening.